Welcome everybody to a Friday edition of the DFO DFS show. It is April the 30th. I hope everyone's having a good Friday. I know I am. Sorry, I typed there in the comments that we were having some technical difficulties, and by technical difficulties, I mean I was pre-gaming on the deck and I lost track of time. So I had to throw together the little graphic there in the top right-hand corner without the arrow, so it's probably not going to move today. But we've got the games, we've got the implied totals. That's really all anybody could ask for on a Friday. So I hope everyone's got a cold one ready for today's show. Hopefully we can win some money. 4-game slate for this Friday. Pretty good, pretty interesting 4-game slate as well. So we're going to get right into it, not waste too much time, and let everybody get on with their day. So this slate kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern with the Montreal Canadiens against the Winnipeg Jets. We are expecting to see Jake Allen for Montreal. Connor Hellebuyck confirmed for the Jets. For the Avalanche, Philip Grubauer returns to the crease after being on the COVID-19 protocol list. They will also get Mikko Rantanen and Jonas Donskoi back in the lineup tonight. They will be going up against the Sharks, who will go with Martin Jones tonight. Josef Kornash confirmed for Saturday. The Ducks will go with John Gibson tonight. Ryan Miller starts Saturday in his farewell game in Anaheim. Unclear who starts for the Kings. They've been kind of rotating in and out last little bit here, pretty much all season, to be honest with you. Cal Peterson coming off a pretty disappointing performance the other night, so I would imagine it's John Quick for the Kings tonight, but again, unconfirmed. The Coyotes will turn to Aiden Hill. And then the Golden Knights most likely going to Robin Lehner as their goaltending rotation continues. So 4 games. It is a Friday, so we'll take our time here, break these games down, with a lot of detail, really try to find who we want to play. I apologize yesterday with the 10-game slate. It was just a little too crazy. Unfortunately, for people who weren't signed up or are not signed up for DFO Premium, you may have not had a great night. Hopefully you still did, but it would have been a good night for the show last night because the premium content was on top of things last night. So unfortunately, I was unable to do a show, but luckily if you have been signed up for DFO Premium, you were completely fine nonetheless. Graham says, cashed again last night. The Bennett train is some ride. Vasilevsky, another monster night, yet only 5% owned. Yeah, I played quite a bit of Vasilevsky last night as well. Not the best matchup, right? I mean, there was a couple goaltenders right around the same price range as him with a little bit better matchups that were more popular. But, guys like James Reimer at like 11% owned. I think he only faced like 17 shots. So that's kind of the risky run. And yeah, Vasi was terrific last night. But all right. Jets and Canadiens. So quickly, last game, we had the Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki line. I said, I'm going to ignore the numbers. Hopefully it doesn't screw me. It did. They didn't really do much. They actually had a pretty good game, but then they were actually, by far Montreal's best line, but they're breaking it up tonight, going with 4 new looks again tonight. Armia back up with Suzuki and Foley Caulfield on the 4th line. So a bit of a bizarre thing to do after Caulfield really looked pretty solid there. That line really had a lot of success. I think they were like a 77% Corsi for, and then just to break it up the next game seems a little bit bizarre to me. But here's what the Montreal Canadiens are going to roll with tonight. The Jets shaking things up a little bit. They shook things up before last game. They're going to roll with the same lineup. That sees Paul Stastny centering the second line with Connor and Wheeler, Pierre-Luc Dubois buried on the third line with Christian Vesalainen and Matthew Perreault. So some peculiar decisions here by both coaches. If it gets to the win tonight, that's all that really matters. But from a DFS perspective, a couple of just bizarre coaching changes, which obviously they don't coach to make us happy. So we'll just have to make do with what we've got. So Winnipeg 1 grades out as the best option in this game. Montreal 1, a close second, and Montreal 2 slightly behind. The Winnipeg depth does not look quite as appealing. The matchups we're going to see in this game, not a whole lot of hard matching going on. The Phil Deneau line will basically only see the top 6 of the Jets. The Nick Suzuki line will see a little bit more of that Pierre-Luc Dubois line. And then the third line, we'll see a little bit more of the 4th line of the Jets. So, the one thing that's for sure is you don't want to play against the 4th line of the Jets. That Nate Thompson line has been really solid. They actually did a pretty good job against Connor McDavid the other night too. So, not really a whole lot of interest in Montreal 3, which isn't really all that surprising. I mean, it's Michael Frolik, it's Eric Stahl, and it's Corey Perry. That's not really a line that you were going to get too excited about anyways. But on a 4-game slate, you got to try to get weird sometimes, but that's not the place to do it. So we can just go ahead and cross Montreal 3 off tonight. Montreal 2, as I mentioned, is going to see a little bit more of the third line, the Pierre-Luc Dubois line. And overall, not terrible defensively, but really what you want to do is try to target that Winnipeg 2 line. That Stastny-Connor Wheeler combination this season has been absolutely horrendous defensively. So you're going to get most of that through Montreal 1, Montreal 3 as well. We'll see their fair share, but just they're not good enough to really capitalize on that. So Montreal 1 looks pretty interesting. The problem is obviously not a whole lot of offensive punch, in terms of, having Deneau and Kotkaniemi there. But Josh Anderson's looked really, really solid as of late. So Josh Anderson as a one-off seems like a really interesting option tonight. Overall, Vegas has this as kind of one of the lower scoring games on the slate, at least, each team being kind of in the middle of the pack. So I think if you're building around maybe Colorado and Vegas, who are the clear favorites on this slate, Josh Anderson as a one-off seems to make quite a bit of sense if you don't want a full stack Montreal 1. If you do, I mean, Phil Deneau is still okay at 3,400. I probably have a little bit more interest in Kotkaniemi at 2,800. If you want to run like maybe a Kotkaniemi Anderson mini, I think that's okay. Kotkaniemi doesn't offer a whole lot in terms of offense, 20 points in 48 games on the season, doesn't shoot a whole lot. So the floor isn't great, but on a 4-game slate, it can be tough to find value sometimes. The Kotkaniemi on that line looks pretty solid, and he's been playing a lot. He's been playing pretty well lately as well. So that's a little bit of an interesting spot for me. I want to be more interested in Montreal 2. I think I still am. As I mentioned, the matchup's still not terrible. That Pierre-Luc Dubois line, it has not been all that great defensively. So, they should still be able to take advantage of that. I think Josh Anderson's the best player on the Montreal side tonight at forward. And then, that Suzuki line's still okay. I'm not in love with it, in terms of in what you're paying for them in the grand scheme of, a 4-game slate, but I still think that they're a pretty solid option. But Foley's still 6,400. Nick Suzuki, though, at 48 is a nice price. He scored, I think, in 3 straight. He's red hot. So I do like them quite a bit as well. I just prefer, I think, Josh Anderson over anybody on the Montreal side of things tonight. Meanwhile, if you flip over back to the Jets, they are going to be going head-to-head with the top 6, of the Canadiens. The Deneau line, obviously, very, very good, but not quite as good without Tatar and Brendan Gallagher. That trio has really kind of just been amazing. With Josh Anderson, they're a little bit more offensive. As you might imagine, they pack a little bit more of an offensive punch, but not quite the same defensive line. I mean, still 57% Corsi for. It's not a great matchup, but they're not quite as good. They're not as feared with Josh Anderson as opposed to Brendan Gallagher and Tatar, at least defensively. So, that opens things up a little bit for Winnipeg 1, going up against the second line, the Nick Suzuki line again, a line that's very, very good at 5v5. So overall, not the greatest matchup for Winnipeg 1 tonight. But I think they're really, when you look at the numbers overall for this team, they're really the only one that you could even consider from the Winnipeg side of things tonight. I don't really love Stastny between Connor and Wheeler. And you get, you still got Appleton at a very reasonable price. I think he's 3,800. So they are probably the route I would go on the Jet side of things. The other option you could go with, if we flip over really quickly here to the power play report, is go through Winnipeg's power play unit. Winnipeg, very solid on the power play, the second best power play on tonight's slate, going up against the second worst penalty kill to their own penalty kill. So I think the Jets power play is probably the route I would go to target the Jets tonight. And it really makes a lot of sense to me because you have Mark Scheifele and Appleton playing together on the top line, and then Kyle Connor's really kind of he's on the second power play unit actually, which is bizarre to me. But Appleton and Scheifele I think is the route to go. If you want to throw in Wheeler and Stastny, maybe. To me though, like I still want to play Kyle Connor. Like he's the only guy that I get excited about from the Jet side of things. But to me, I think Appleton Scheifele is the smartest route to go. Top power play unit exposure, a decent 5v5 advantage as well. So pretty much enough about that game. Unless actually we should flip over to the goalies here. Connor Hellebuyck grades out as the third best goaltending option on tonight's slate at 7,700. A lot of that driven by his shot volume, but Vegas calls this one obviously a very tight matchup, the tightest of the 4 games on tonight's slate. So Jake Allen actually grades out as the 4th best option rate. 2 pretty decent options. Shot volume should be solid for both of them. Relatively lower scoring game, it looks like on paper. So not overly excited about either side of this game. I do think that there's a couple pieces. I do like Appleton again. He'll probably be popular. Josh Anderson looks really, really solid. And then both, the Winnipeg 1 and Montreal 2 look okay. Moving on to the Colorado game. So as I mentioned, Mikko Rantanen back in the lineup. The Avs are normally pretty good about announcing their lineup, but apparently Jared Bednar has had enough of that. He is not going to be announcing his lineup before the game anymore. At least, he literally would break down each line, which was awesome. But he just doesn't want to do it anymore. So whatever, do what you want, Jared. And so we're just going to project basically what they were doing before Mikko Rantanen and Jonas Donskoi went out. I don't think that's really that far-fetched. Rantanen's almost certainly going to be back on the top line with Landeskog and McKinnon. It needs to happen. They weren't that good without him. The second line is probably going to be Carl Soderberg with Kadri and Burakovsky, leaving the third line as our boys, Valeri Nichushkin, Tyson Jost, and Jonas Donskoi. If we look over to the Sharks, they got some new look lines again tonight. Barabanov remains on the top line with Thomas Hertl and Evander Kane. The second line will have Ivan Chekovich making his NHL debut. He spent the year in the KHL, put up pretty solid numbers over there. I think he had 17 goals, 17 assists in 45 games or something like that. How well that carries over, I'm not entirely sure, but he makes his NHL debut on the second line with Logan Couture. If we take a peek back over here, Barabanov, just 2,600. He's looking really good on that top line. He'll be popular tonight. But then Chekovich, 2,500 minimum price, obviously, in his NHL debut on that second line. So a couple interesting punts there from the Sharks. Problem is, the Avalanche are so good defensively, it's really hard to target the Sharks tonight. But on a 4-game slate, I think you can definitely get weird with some of those plays. So let's take a look quickly at the matchups here. The McKinnon line basically going to see 52% of their ice time. I'm roughly, going head-to-head basically. Whoa, what did I do here? I didn't even put the percents in. Embarrassing. 52% of their ice time is going to come against that Logan Couture line. The second line is going to see the Kadri line is going to go up head-to-head with the Hertl line for the majority of the time. The third line against the third line, fourth line against the fourth line. So pretty easy game to break down from that standpoint. Colorado won with Rantanen back. Obviously, ridiculous numbers. Going head-to-head with that Couture line, not a great matchup. Couture, Rudolph, Balcers have been pretty solid. But overall, 45% Corsi for. They're pretty good defensively, but they don't really offer much offensively. So they're definitely suspect to getting caved in by that McKinnon line tonight. So I do obviously, you got to like the McKinnon line, full stacking them on a 4-game slate, and then kind of just get weird elsewhere. So the matchup, obviously not amazing, but not bad either. The second line looks okay. What I like is that they're going to be going head-to-head with the Hertl line. So, with Burakovsky and no Brandon Saad, with no Brandon Saad, Colorado 2's defensive numbers take a massive hit. They look very poor defensively without Brandon Saad, so that opens things up a little bit for that Thomas Hertl line. So that should be a nice matchup for the Hertl line. A little bit nicer of a matchup than you normally would expect against the Avalanche. So I do like going back to San Jose once tonight. They've been really hot. You got Barabanov at 2,600 still. Hertl just 5,000. Evander Kane even only 6,300. They're red hot right now. The matchup looks pretty juicy. So I'm definitely going to be going back to San Jose once tonight. As for the rest of the bottom six, the Sharks not very good. The third line for the Avalanche, obviously, we've been riding them throughout the course of the season. They've got a very nice matchup against the third line of the Sharks. So they should be a nice punt option, a nice value stack tonight on a 4-game slate. You can definitely sprinkle them in some lineups. The one thing I will caution you about is obviously, Donskoi and Mikko Rantanen returning to the lineup after COVID. We've seen that it's obviously hit some of these players harder than others. We don't really know exactly how hard it's hit these two. They could be, maybe not at 100% tonight, but there's a chance you got to kind of take on a 4-game slate. So good news is Donskoi is back on the top power play unit. That is the one piece of information we definitely have out of the Avalanche camp tonight. So Donskoi back on the top power play unit makes that third line a little bit more stackable tonight. If we take a look at their price, you've got Valeri Nichushkin 3,600, Jost at 3,000, Donskoi at 4,300. So 10,900 to full stack them. Very, very reasonably priced as usual. Just a quick reminder, please smash that like button if you are watching on YouTube. So yeah, not too much more I think to really say about this. I think San Jose 1 is the only one with a half-decent matchup, only one I would really target from the San Jose side of things. The Avs have the biggest power play advantage on the slate. Their power play is really, really good. The Sharks actually have a very, very good penalty kill. The issue is they are one of the most undisciplined teams in the entire league, and nobody, and I mean nobody, draws more penalties than the Colorado Avalanche. So it looks like there should be plenty of chances for that top power play unit to be on the ice tonight for the Avs. And then obviously that is going to be good. I will pull those up quickly just so you know what they look like. As I mentioned, it's going to be Mikko Rantanen. It's going to be Gabe Landeskog, Nate McKinnon, Jonas Donskoy, and Cale Makar on the top unit. Obviously, that is going to be the one that you're going to go to more than, the second power play unit. They will see probably about 30 seconds to every 90 seconds that the top unit sees. So, Makar, definitely a really nice play tonight. Donskoy, a nice punt. And then obviously Colorado 1 just looks as good as ever. Graham says the return of Colorado 3. Yeah, definitely could be. Obviously it's a little bit harder to get excited about them and full stack them when they've been pretty. I think Donskoy has gone pointless in 7 straight. So they're clearly not as hot as they once were. But the rates remain extremely, impressive. So they're going to have the puck on their stick in the offensive zone a lot, and that's all you really can ask for on a 4-game slate. So, if this was a 10-gamer, I'd probably steer away, but on a 4, you got to get weird, and I definitely think that, I'm definitely going to be getting weird with Colorado 3 tonight. They are awesome. And like I said before, we were even the only ones playing them before when they were red hot. So now that they're cold, we're definitely going to be the only people playing them tonight. All right, we flip over to the Kings and Ducks here. So LA 1, the only one that grades out above average in this game. I will mention I do have quite a bit of interest in Quinton Byfield. I talked down on him a little bit on I think it was Wednesday he made his NHL debut. I thought it would take him a little bit more time to get acclimated to the NHL, especially, coming in and going to center right away. But he looked pretty good in his first game. He played 17 minutes, 17 and a half minutes. He had 4 shots on goal. The line as a whole did pretty well. So I definitely, if you've been watching the show a lot, I have a very difficult time paying up for LA 1. They just don't offer a whole lot for what you're paying for. The bang for the buck is not there with them whatsoever. I hate paying for them. I might have a little bit of exposure tonight just because it's such a small slate, but I hate paying for them, and I probably won't play them I'll be way under the field tonight because they're always popular for whatever reason. I can't really get behind it. So to me, I much prefer the depth of the Kings tonight. That's the route I went the other night too. Velarde cashed in with a goal. I think Athanasiou had an assist. It worked out very well. LA 1, I think, did nothing. So that's kind of the route I'm going to go again tonight, I believe. So it's going to be the Trevor Zegras line is going to see, the majority of their ice time against top 6 of the Kings. The second line, which is Lindstrom and Raquel, mostly going to just avoid the Byfield line in the fourth line. And then the third line, which is the Sam Steele line right now, going up against the middle 6 of the Kings. So let me start with the Byfield line. They're going to be going up primarily against just everybody except for the second line of the Ducks. The second line of the Ducks is their best defensive line. So avoiding the Lindstrom line looks like a very good thing for Quinton Byfield tonight. He's going to see plenty of that third line, which is among the worst defensive lines on the slate. 22% of his ice time. Also going to see quite a bit of ice time against that Getzlaf, Nick Delorier, Derek Grant line, which isn't great. I mean, the numbers overall aren't terrible, but this 69 Corsi against means that they're just getting hemmed in, which you can see here, 43% Corsi 4. So if you just look at the Ducks bottom 6, not very good. 46% Corsi 4, 43% Corsi 4. 2 lines that are getting hemmed in with regularity. Byfield going up against them all night long should be a recipe for success. If we take a look back at his line mates, Trevor Moore has been a player that's played pretty well this year. Shot volume has been pretty consistent over the recent games. He played 19 minutes the other night. He's got 2 goals and an assist in his last 4, so he looks solid. Kempe's always been a guy that's been okay. He's not on the top power play unit anymore, but he's still pretty solid. Shot volume, is hit or miss usually with him, but the one thing you're getting out of him is reliable usage. So to me, LA 2 looks like the best route to go in this game, at least just kind of from a bang for your buck perspective. The other thing about Quinton Byfield, he was on the top power play unit with Kopitar, Brown, Athanasiou, and Doughty. So things look really good for Byfield tonight. I do have some interest in him. I thought it would take him a little bit longer. I might have been wrong. I think he looked pretty good. I think, and I think he's pretty good play tonight. And the price is very good. So, like I said, full stacking them is 11,400. I think it's very reasonable. And then they're not on the top power play unit, but Kempe and Moore both on the second unit. So, yeah, looks like a pretty good line. Obviously, LA1 still looks okay. They're going to be going up against the top 6 of the Ducks, which is pretty solid defensively. Overall, the reason I don't pay for them is that they just aren't that good offensively. And as I always say, they grade out okay overall from a 5v5 perspective because they play a bunch, so they hit more opportunity than everybody else. But overall, I hate paying up for them. I think they're okay tonight, but I much prefer the value options from the Kings. If we take a look over at the Ducks, there's just not a whole lot to like. They're just not very good offensively. I mean, I don't think that's much of a surprise. The one line that you could probably take advantage of is the Kings' third line. So whoever's playing the most against the third line, which is the second and third line of the Ducks, is kind of the only route that it looks like you could maybe go. Raquel maybe as a one-off at 5,100 is fine. I just don't know if I want to play Stam Steele and Max Jones at minimum price. I think the guy I would most likely want to play is Troy Terry, Max Comtois, and Trevor Zegras. I think I would just suck it up and just say, hey, whatever. Hopefully they can win their matchup. Overall, though, it doesn't look likely. Pretty tough matchup. Most of their, 50% of the ice time virtually going to be against Anze Kopitar. So I can't really get behind the Ducks because the guys I really want to target from them just are in a tough matchup tonight. So I can't really get behind it. Hayden Fleury at 2,500. Yeah, he's been okay. I like that he's playing a lot. He really doesn't offer much of a floor, but at $2,500 defenseman, they're going to be kind of hard to come by tonight. But we'll get to the defenseman a little bit later in the show. So moving on to already the fourth game of the night. 4 games are fun. We've got the Coyotes and the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights are on an absolute warpath right now. They have just been trucking along, just running over everybody in their path for seemingly the entire month of April. Vegas 1, Vegas 2 grade out very, very well. Arizona 1 looks okay. The rest of this game, not so much. The matchups in this game is going to be Arizona 1 going up against the William Karlsson line for the majority of the night, 47% of their ice time. Arizona 2 is going to primarily see the Chandler Stevenson, Max Pacioretty, Mark Stone combination. The third line is going to see a decent amount of them as well. Also see a large chunk of the fourth line of the Golden Knights. So the line that you really want to target from the Coyotes is that Dvorak, Phil Kessel line, not very good defensively. So as I mentioned, that is going to be the Max Pacioretty line going up against them the majority of the time. So to me, it gives a slight edge to the Pacioretty, Stevenson, Stone line tonight over Vegas 2. But if you're building a lot of lineups, I think you're going to want to have exposure to both of those lines tonight. But it does look like the biggest advantage certainly lies with the Pacioretty line tonight. But, going up head-to-head with this top line, they're okay. Defensively, they're right around average. It's not terrible. The problem is they're very good offensively. So 57% Corsi 4 is definitely impressive. Problem is they're going up against another line with a 7% Corsi 4. So somebody's going to have to win that matchup. They might saw each other up a little bit. Both lines built very similar. Their numbers are almost identical to each other, with Vegas being slightly better offensively. So I'd imagine that I would give the edge to the Karlsson over Nick Schmaltz tonight, but it looks like it's certainly a more difficult matchup for Vegas 2. Vegas 1 looks impressive tonight. So that's the route I would go. Overall, not a whole lot of interest in the Coyotes tonight. If we look over the top right-hand corner at the implied goal totals for tonight via Vegas, Arizona, the second lowest implied total on the slate at 2.4 goals. San Jose Sharks, the lowest at 2.3. So it's tough to find interest in either one of those teams. They're going up against juggernauts tonight. Obviously, though, you're going to have to find some contrarian plays. I think we found a couple already. So, I don't think you need to get too desperate and try to go after the Coyotes tonight. The Golden Knights are just playing too well. Their goaltending is just exceptional. So it's really hard to get overly excited about anybody from the Coyotes right now. Maybe Jacob Chikrin if you want to pay up for him. He's been really, really consistent, really, really, just outstanding this year. So, but at 6,800, obviously it's going to be tough to fit him in with pretty much anybody else. They've got a couple other decent guys. Goligoski's been pretty solid. His usage is outstanding, 4,200. But overall, not really a team that's catching my eye tonight. On the power play, the Golden Knights, the third largest power play advantage on the slate. Their power play is the third best. The Coyotes' penalty kill is below average. They also draw quite a few penalties, and the Coyotes not the most disciplined team in hockey. So looks like a nice advantage for the Golden Knights there. But again, a lot of it runs through that top line, who I believe last time I checked fully correlate on the top power play unit, and that is the case still. Stone, Stevenson, Pacioretty, Janmark, and Theodore on the top unit. So should be all hands on deck with Colorado 1 and Vegas 1. Obviously going to be the two most popular lines on the slate, but they both are in terrific spots. So it's going to be very difficult to fade them if you're making one lineup tonight. Obviously, though, at their price, it's going to be very difficult to play them together, so you're going to have to get creative if you want to try that. And then, if you're going to probably have to eat some chalk tonight, but you're just going to have to play some of these other cheaper value options that are going to be a little bit more obscure, a little bit more off the board. Obviously, if you're building around Arizona 1 and Colorado 1 and you're using Barabanov, that's going to be wildly popular. If you use some of these, other cheaper guys, I think you're probably going to be a little bit better off. If we take a look here at the big board overall, somebody like Kotkaniemi jumps out as being a really nice value play. That might not be quite as popular as Barabanov, Tyson Yost, Valerie Nichushkin, those type of guys as well. Outside of that, it is kind of slim pickings. I think Chekovich is going to be one that's going to be largely overlooked. Same with Rudolph Balcers. Maybe even that Byfield line to a certain extent. Appleton will be really popular. Like if you're going in saying I'm building, Vegas 1, Colorado 1 with Appleton and Barabanov, then, it's going to be the chalkiest lineup of all time. But, maybe this cash lineup, obviously, though, putting those two lines together is next to impossible. You're going to have to leave, at least two of them off anyway. So, maybe leaving off the right ones is a way to get different. But overall, it's going to be tough to kind of get off the chalk tonight because it looks so good. At every single stop. So that's that. Both power plays look really good too, in addition to their 5v5 advantages. Both teams lines full stack on top power play. So again, it can be very difficult to get off that chalk. Robin Lehner at 8,300, the number one goaltender on the slate. Philip Grubauer on his return to the crease, the most expensive goalie on the slate at 8,500. Excuse me, I gotta wake up. It's Friday here. A super stack of Colorado looks tempting. Yeah, I think the issue with super stacking Colorado tonight is that they have looked pretty sluggish lately. So maybe getting Rantanen and Donskoy and Grubauer back will light a spark underneath them. But the matchup looks really, really good. The Sharks are not very good defensively. To me, I think I probably prefer if I was going to full stack a certain team, I think I would prefer to full stack Vegas as opposed to Colorado. But both teams look really, really good. But yeah, playing Colorado 1 with Colorado 3, you can do it with ease. Even if it's just Colorado 1 with Makar, Donskoy, and Yost, and then get weird elsewhere. Definitely looks pretty appealing. But yeah, Philip Grubauer, most expensive goaltender on the slate, grades out as the second best. Connor Hellebuyck and Jake Allen, already mentioned them. In terms of value plays, I think Hellebuyck is your guy tonight. The Canadiens just really are having a difficult time scoring. They're in a stretch right now too. Everybody was talking about how many games Vancouver is going to have to play, but Montreal went through their COVID issues as well, had a bunch of canceled games, and they're in a stretch right now where they've been playing hockey nonstop. So they look like a tired bunch against the Leafs the other night. The Jets are hopefully will be able to take advantage of that. So Hellebuyck at that price, he's obviously had been off a little bit lately as well, but he looks like the best kind of cheap goaltending option tonight. If you're going down lower, I think you'd have to just look at John Gibson as opposed to Aiden Hill or Martin Jones. I think both of those guys, obviously it's going to be interesting, to play those guys at minimum price, but it is going to be, next to impossible for either one of those guys to win, I think, tonight. Obviously we like to punt guys like John Bernier and stuff, in certain matchups, but this one, the one thing for sure out of Hill and Jones, you're going to get plenty of shot volume. So even if they give up 4, they can still salvage their night at 7,000. But to me, John Gibson's probably the only one that you even have a chance at getting a W out of at the very bottom. And then Hellebuyck obviously looks pretty solid. So that's that for the goalies. In terms of D, obviously it is Friday, so I haven't studied too hard. But at the bottom, Jamie Drysdale still sticks out as being solid. 22 minutes the other night, 2,900. Drysdale definitely looks good. Patrick Nemes always one that's fairly interesting just because of his knack for blocking shots. He had 6 blocks and 3 blocks in his first 2 games to the Avs. He's cooled down a little bit since, but he's still solid. Thomas, a beyond fought at minimum price. He plays on the top pairing with Drew Doughty, so he plays quite a bit of minutes. Mikey Anderson sees some run up there as well. We talked about Hayden Fleury. I like his usage. I don't really like what he offers as a floor. Tucker Poolman plays quite a bit too. Tucker Poolman's one that I usually go to at 2,700. My boy Mario Ferraro is way too cheap at 2,600. Make sure he's in your lineups tonight. Love Mario. But the rest of it is pretty grimy. Not a whole lot underneath. At minimum price. Ilya Lyubushkin's okay. They should be hemmed in a ton tonight, so his shot blocking prowess should come through. Cam Fowler, 3,400. Cam Fowler's always a solid option. Plays a ton, does see some power play time. Cam Fowler at 3,400, definitely in play tonight. I do like him as well. But we are 32 minutes into today's Friday edition of the DFO DFS show. I will stick around here for a couple more minutes if you guys have any more questions. In the meantime, I will fire it back over to the big board just so we can stare at that for a little bit. I'll enjoy a cold one while you guys come up with your questions, if you have any. Friday shows are fun. I can get used to this. Especially if they're 4-game slates. It's even more fun. But yeah. Outside, it's shocking how impressive Arizona 1 looks overall. I just don't know if I can do it. Clayton Keller's been pretty good lately, 4,600. Riley Smith at 4,000 is way too cheap. He's always too cheap. I don't know why. Can Calgary make the playoffs? No, they suck. Top value guy. I mean, it has to be Barabanov. But if you want, not popular value guy, I think Joel Armia. I like Joel Armia a lot. Always have. Shoots a ton. He hasn't always been shooting a lot lately, but on that Nick Suzuki line, if they play anywhere close to as good as they did the other night with Caulfield, I like Armia a lot. I honestly, I wouldn't even hesitate to go back to Caulfield a little bit tonight either. The issue is he's 4,200. Still going to see power play time. Jake Evans is solid enough where that line should get a decent amount of run. He's probably going to only play 13 minutes like he did the other night. But I think because he's down there, he was kind of popular the other night. It was a bigger slate, but he was kind of popular on the second line. On the fourth line, he should see next to no ownership. He's still super talented. He still looks to shoot every time he has the puck. So I think he's a pretty interesting option. No one's going to talk about him tonight. No one's going to play him. But he's still on that top. He's still on a power play unit, right? Still on a power play unit with Nick Suzuki. If you play Suzuki into Foley, why not throw him in on a power play stack? If you're building a bunch of lineups. If you're not, then just leave him off. But all right. Well, it looks like there's no further questions. I will take one more sip while I wait one more minute. But if there's no further questions, that's going to do it for today's DFO DFS show. And I am going to. Do I like Evander King? Yeah, I do. I do like. I mentioned that. That matchup with Nazem Kadri's line is pretty good. That Kadri line's really, really good when Brandon Saad's in the lineup. When he's not, they're nowhere near as good. It's very similar to taking Rantanen off that Colorado one. They're just not quite as good. So that matchup's, I think, pretty good. I do like him because he's not overly priced. He's very reasonable. What is he? 6,300, super reasonable for, he's scored 20 goals already this year. And I think a lot of people are going to look at that game and the implied total at 2.3 goals and be like, I'm not playing that. I'm not playing the Sharks. And it's warranted because the Avs are so good defensively, but in a 4-game slate, I think I do like Evander King quite a bit. Definitely not my favorite play, but if you're building, a couple lineups, I'm definitely going to have some Evander King. But yeah, that's going to do it. David, you are welcome. And Graham, thank you. I hope you have a good weekend as well. I hope everyone has a good weekend. If you want to get access to all this stuff over the weekend, obviously I don't do any shows. Join DFO Premium. It's $9.99 for a week. Come try it out. Check out some shit. It's much easier to build your lineups when you're staring at these sheets as opposed to trying to remember everything I said during the show. So how many goals against Grubauer? 2. They're going to win 4-2 tonight. I think the Sharks are going to get a couple. It's pretty easy for me to say 4-2 when the implied total is 3.8 to 2.3. I didn't even look at that. I swear. But all right, that's going to do it for today's DFO DFS show. Have a good weekend, everybody. See you guys back here Monday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Please, if you haven't already, smash that like button on your way out. Hopefully, you return Monday with more money in your bankroll than you have today. Good luck, and we'll see you back here in a few days. Enjoy your weekend.